Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Morning Mist 99 Above and Beyond Schizophrenia. So we're coming from, that's where we are, that's where we're going. Now on this channel, we're not about coping with schizophrenia. We're not about managing schizophrenia. Those are all right. Those are part of the process. We are about recovery, and those are maybe part of the process to get there, because there are times we need to do those in between. But why run the race if we're not going to be in it to win it? Why fight the battle if we're not going to be in it to win it? Right? So that was my mindset in that period of time where I was struggling with schizophrenia. Right? Fight it to win it. Now, I didn't get cute with it. I didn't get friendly with it. And it tried to get friendly with me, tried to get cute with me, but I rejected all of that because I didn't want to settle there. And I understood the trappings of these things. If you don't concentrate on where you're going, look to where you're going, and get pulled off into certain directions, you can get stuck in there mentally. Right? You have these habits, these tendencies. And so I rejected those because my attitude, my goal, my focus was to recovery. That's what I geared that towards, and that's why I was part of the reason why I was able to reach the recovery that I have today. Now we are continuing part 3 of the series, Marijuana, Schizophrenia, and Spirituality. Right? So welcome. Thank you for being with us, and let's go in this direction. So today, our last video, we talked about what did we talk about? We talked about marijuana. We got more into the dimensional stuff and the gateway stuff, and how marijuana connects you to certain energies, or makes it easier for you to connect to certain energies. I mentioned how I could watch paint dry if I was high, because it allowed me to just connect that much, so easily to doing that thing, right? And so what we want to talk about this time is what marijuana simulates, because there's a natural process we could take to kind of have the same capacity or similar capacity than what marijuana gives us, and that is fasting. Yes, fasting. I know what you're thinking. The heck you're talking about, Paul? The hell's fasting got to do with it? Marijuana makes you want to eat, not makes you want to fast. Yes, that's right. That's true. It makes you want to eat, but first it creates this hunger in you, right? What it does is when you now I'm going somewhere with this, right? I'm not just talking this for the sake of talking it. There's something I'm going somewhere with this. Now, when you fast, what happens is the blood from your stomach leaves and pushes up towards your brain, right? It starts to flow differently, right? So, and it's the same thing with marijuana, right? There's an increased blood flow that's going on, right? And it pushes everything up, and it pushes you out. And fasting, except marijuana does that in a more quicker level. Fasting does it more slowly, right? So you can actually ease into this. And I fasted from 1 day to 43 days, right? So it gets different. It gets different, and you don't notice this until you get higher up in days. And I will tell you this, some of the same experiences that I had when I was high, seeing all kinds of stuff and just, on edge. It's the same things that I experienced when I was fasting those days, right? I would see the same things, hear the same things, and it's like the same energy, very, very similar energy, right? And I was able to, I became so sensitive to everything, sound, taste, not taste, I wasn't eating, but smell, or if I were to eat something, right, in order to break the fast, it would have been just that much stronger, right? And I was just, the mental energy was just so enormous, right? My focus was like lasered in, man. It was just dialed in, right? And everything I was just picking up. And so if you don't, it's the same when you're high and you're having those kind of experiences, everything, you're just so sensitive to everything. right? And so it's just, if you don't know how to control these, and that's where you kind of go off on the deep end sometimes, right? So marijuana, it does it. And fasting is something that's been done as well, like marijuana, for thousands of years. Not just because people were starving, but I'm talking about when people intentionally choose to go in that direction for religious purposes, spiritual, traditional, whatever their intentions may have been. And that brings me to a word there, intention, the key word that I want to bring and to connect these, whether it's marijuana or meditation. Meditation is also something that can elevate you up into this space. It's different though, because usually marijuana works is with through meditation, and it's more controlled. Fasting, it's also, you usually tend to be meditating as well, praying, meditating. And when you just meditate by itself, it does give you some level of higher elevation in your consciousness. But the thing about meditation as well is it's best done when your stomach is empty, right? If you're full in your stomach, all the blood is here, you're not going to feel as comfortable, right? Sitting there or laying there. It's just something different about having food in your stomach versus when it's empty. Marijuana now, it just empties you out. It makes you feel empty anyways, right? And then what do? When you start eating, it pulls you back down, right? The blood starts to flow back down in order to help with digestion, right? So that's what's something that could get you out of your high a bit, is to eat something. And also what happens is when you're high, you're so caught up in these energies. Sometimes your breathing starts to go more shallow. But what that does is it actually pulls you more into this energy because you're so focused on everything. What happens is you start to I don't know, because how one of the ways to release yourself from the body is to slower your breathing, right? And then when you're high now, and if you're not paying attention, but you're just kind of caught up on everything, you'll find that this is happening. You kind of get stuffy or something like that when you realize what's going. When you kind of come back to that, but it doesn't. It's not something that helps you. It actually pushes you further out. So, that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit. I don't recommend marijuana for anybody who is going through psychosis, although, like I said, if you're doing it already and it's working for you, great. Just in case things take a turn for the worse, maybe you have some idea now what is happening, in that you can always control it. Just pull it back in, rein it in, right? Come back to yourself, take some deep, slow breaths. Focus on your breath. Focus on your breathing. Pull yourself back into your body and open your eyes and so forth, right? So now what I want to connect with marijuana, fasting, meditation, I looked this up to some other people, or looked this up from some other people on YouTube. People who smoke marijuana regularly for spiritual purposes, people who smoke it sparingly for spiritual purposes, and people who smoked it but no longer smoke it because they want to gain these things naturally. One thing they all have in common is that they all say, or not just marijuana, even just any kind of psychedelics, they always say your intention matters. Always set your intention before you do the drug, right? It's the same thing for meditation. Anyone has been to a yoga class or listened to any yogi or whatever it is, they always say, set your intention before the beginning of the class, right? Or the experience. Always set your intention. And it's the same thing when you're fasting. You usually fast for a reason. There's an intention behind what you're fasting for, right? You don't just do it just willy-nilly. There's always an intention, because intention focuses your mind, right? And so if your mind gets pulled here or there, you always have some place to go back to, which is a straighter path, because whatever it is that comes here or there, this is called distractions, And if you follow the distraction, especially if you're under the influence of marijuana, the distraction could take you into some crazy places because, like I said, you're connecting to an energy, and an energy is going to pull you. It will pull you. Now, when you're not high, does that mean there's no energy there that pulls you? Oh, it most certainly pulls you. It's just not as strong, right? These are the energy where your mind just starts going off into something, right? Sometimes you daydream about who knows whatever the heck it is. It's something that's pulling you, but then you realize it, you pull yourself back, right? Your intentions allows you to pull away from those negative energies, right? And because if you get carried away, you can get stuck in some deep, deep waters, right? And fasting is the same thing. Especially if you do it for an extended period of time and the intention isn't clear, and any type of hallucination comes your way, and then you start to look towards it because the pull is similar to that's when you're on marijuana or any kind of psychedelic. So it can pull on you because you're already up in this area, this energetic space, higher up, and it can pull you, and it just pulls you, and it feeds into you as well, right? So then you come back and you already have this already now stirring within, some place within. You may not even know it's there, right? You might not even know it's there. Sometimes it's just laying dormant, and it's waiting, and it's waiting, and it's waiting, and waiting until a time when you're unaware, you're unsuspecting, you think it's all safe, it's all nice and easy, you're having a good time, you're walking this nice summer day, the sky is blue, the sun is shining down, and you're just going somewhere doing but your business, and someone will say, hey, something will shout to you or say something to you. You look, turn around, there's nobody there. You're like, what the heck? Keep going about your business. That'll be the first time. But then it can happen. Continue like that until, you end up like I did. End up in my situation. That's exactly what happened to me. So that's what I want to really, I think the folks that this video, I want to keep it short, but the important process of this journey is intention. This is the problem with a lot of people who are, I don't know, maybe even the medical professionals as well, because I was never given anything like this. I was never given anything like this by the doctors, by anybody. All the years I was suffering, all the people I've seen, the doctors I've talked with, I never gained any of this, right? And a lot of times people just think that because you've experienced this and you've maybe suffering with it, you're stuck with it. But no one tells, and even hear a lot, I listen to other people talk about schizophrenia, and nobody talks about this. Set your intention. Every morning you get out of bed, know where the heck you're going, right? If you're a parent who has a child going through this, talk to them about that. What is it that they're experiencing? Do they want to be away from it? And what it's going to take? Set their intention and look in that direction and walk in that direction. If your intention is to go in a certain direction, that means you're not going to give your attention to what's over here, a voice calling you here, a voice calling you here, or any kind of narration in your life or whatever. Who cares? Set your intention, ignore everything else that's contrary to the path that you're going, and walk in that direction. You will reach your destination. You have to, because the laws of success supports you. That's what it is. That's what it is. It has to leave you. Resist what you don't want. Embrace that which you do want. You can only do that by setting your mind towards your goal and working to get there. And that's what we need to understand. What kind of work is it that takes us to this goal? And so, yeah. Hopefully this helps some of you, and we'll pick this up back. I'm going to be finished this part of it. There's a lot more that could be said, but I don't want to just put all this stuff in it that really is not going to be helpful. But I want to just tie that part in there because a lot of people smoking marijuana and maybe not even understand that there's a natural way to accomplish one of the things that people who do smoke marijuana for spiritual purposes are seeking, anyways, right? And it's a lot. And here's the thing, I say this: if there's something of value that you want, it's going to cost you something. You're going to have to sacrifice something, right? Marijuana now, it's like a cheat code, right? So I call it. So cheat. It makes you bypass the sacrifice of fasting and to achieve something quickly. It's not, there's always a price for something like that. Anything that comes via shortcut, there's a cost you're going to pay, right? It's going to cost you. Okay? So you might get to the same capacity to have some of these in spiritual understandings. And listen, actually, let me get to that. But it's a cheat way of achieving this through the sacrifice of fasting, because this is a slow process and you can learn maybe more as you go, right? And maybe you don't want to go excessively like I did, but there's just something different about that, right? About that journey, about you doing it and the sacrifice. You understand more about your own physiology and your own spiritual state, your mental state, and it's just totally different thing. And you will gain a better energy from that. Now, this is now marijuana, and I'll touch on this with just maybe psilocybin or DMT and ayahuasca, some of these other psychedelics. Even, listen, drugs in general, all of them, every one of them opens are like doors that open up to a different space, right? It's in the same higher energetic place, right? So whatever it is you're taking, it's kind of like one drug, you'll take it and you'll open up, maybe you're in the sky. Another one, you open up, you take it, you'll be in the desert. Another one, you're over the sea. Another one, you open up the door, you're under the sea. Another one, you're in space. Another one, you're on another planet, right? What this means is that there's a different energy that's directly connected to this drug, and this is what most people are going to experience. Most people who take marijuana have similar experiences, right? So that's the energy for that drug, and this drug is going to bring you to the same space. Everyone first, maybe you step off into that same space, right? Now, there's different, you go there, and then different stuff can happen, and you start to venture further into this, right? So, but this is what these drugs do. They all bring you out into this place, and then depends where you go, there's a different energy tied to that, which is going to shape what experience you have. Now, a lot of musicians, artists, rockers or rappers, these guys, they do drugs in order to some of them knowingly, most of them really knowingly, you do it to connect to this higher energy so you can be more creative, right? Sometimes you're writing things naturally. Maybe you start that when you're young, but then as you start to understand and start to get into drugs and so forth, you start to become more. It feeds you something that you don't really get when you're not under that kind of influence, right? And that can be addictive, right? And especially when you want to get certain type of energy, you take a certain type of drug because it connects you to a different kind of energy. Right? So a lot of these guys are addicted to drugs, or OD and stuff like that, especially rockers with the kind of harsh heroin and all the stuff that they do. Some of these guys, it pulls you into a place, and maybe and obviously there's other effects, right? There's other effects, calming and whatever kind of effects. Sometimes you may get to the physical effects, but when you do it for the creative purposes, it can be just a destructive, right? But when you do it like that, you become addicted to it because sometimes you can't be creative without it, right? And so that's one of the dangers of it as well. It all brings you into a certain space, man, and these guys understand that. A lot of them understand that more than regular people do, just smoking it just for a good time. That's all right, but there's more to it than that, So anyway, I'm done. I'm going to shut up. I'm getting off. All right, next time.